Hello children, today lesson is human circulatory system. To get easily understand, I'm going to divide this lesson into three components: heart, blood and blood vessels. First of all, let's move into the heart. At the heart, we are going to discuss the structure of the heart first. The heart is a hollow organ. It is made up with the cardiac muscles. It locates left side of your thoracic cavity in between lungs. It consists four chamber in the inside. The first in your left hand side there is a right part, and your right hand side you have to label as left part. And the upper chambers are called atriums, while the lower chambers are called ventricles. The first chamber is right atrium. The second upper chamber is left atrium. The third one, this one is the left ventricle, right ventricle, and this one is left ventricle. There are several blood vessels are connected into the heart to pump blood away from the heart and towards the heart. This blood vessel is called superior vena cava, and this blood vessel is called inferior vena cava. They are opened into the right atrium of the heart. And to the left atrium, pulmonary veins are open, while the pulmonary arteries are open into the right ventricle. The blood pumps throughout the body is carried out by the aorta. It is open into the left ventricle. In between right atrium and right ventricle, there is a tricuspid valve, and in between left atrium and left ventricle, it is a bicuspid valve. It is also known as mitral valve. Inside the pulmonary artery and aorta, there are semilunar valves are present. Let's see how to pump blood by the heart. Heart is just like a motor. It can pump blood throughout the body, and it gives pressure to pump the blood throughout the body. First, the deoxygenated blood carries from the upper body part and lower body part receive to the right atrium by superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. After it gets contracted, this blood moves into the right ventricle. After the right ventricle is contracted, this deoxygenated blood enters into the pulmonary artery. This pulmonary artery carries blood into the lungs to get oxygenated. After get oxygenated, the blood from the lungs received by the pulmonary veins to the left atrium of the heart. Then left atrium get contracted and moves the blood to the left ventricle. After contracting left ventricle, this blood enters to the aorta to distribute throughout the body. Your right hand side of the heart consists oxygenated blood. Your left hand side consists deoxygenated blood. In second figure, you can observe how the blood transfer throughout the body. From this flow chart, you can see inferior vena cava and superior vena cava receive blood into the right atrium, and then after right atrium contract, it enters to the right ventricle by opening tricuspid valve in between the right atrium and right ventricle. After right ventricle is contracted, they enters into the pulmonary artery by opening semilunar valves. Then they get oxygenated from the lungs. After get oxygenated, they receive to the heart again by the pulmonary veins, and they enters into the left atriums. Then after get contracting left atriums, they are enters into the left ventricles by opening bicuspid valves, left ventricles by opening bicuspid valves. Then again by opening semilunar valves of the aorta, it distribute into the body. This is the process done by the heart. There are some phenomena associated with the heart. There are heartbeat, cardiac cycle, as well as blood pressure. Let's get to know what is the heartbeat. Heartbeat is the contraction and dilation of the heart muscles. Is known as heartbeat. Normally, in a healthy person, there is a 72 times per minute you can hear the heartbeat. When occurring one heartbeat, there is a cardiac cycle occurs. You can see in this figure what is the cardiac cycle. From this figure, you can see how the cardiac cycle is occur. First of all, you can see the both atriums get contracted, and after that, both ventricles get contracted. After those contraction, both atriums and ventricles are get relaxed. This is the process which is occur when the cardiac cycle is happen. For the both ventricles atriums contractions, it get 0.1 second. For both ventricle contraction, it gets 0.3 second. For the relaxation of cardiac relaxation or intervening, it gets 0.4 second time. For the contraction of atria, also known as diastole, the contraction of ventricle is known as systole, and the both relaxation, atriums and ventricle relaxation, is known as intervening. When this cardiac cycle is occur, you will hear lub and dub sound. The lub sound is here because of the closing of tricuspid valve and bicuspid valve. These are the tricuspid and bicuspid valves. The dub sound is here when the closing of the semilunar valves. They are present inside the aorta and pulmonary artery. To monitoring the cardiac cycle, you can use electrocardiogram. From electrocardiogram, there are three peaks you will observe. The first peak, this one is P, is known as diastole. That means the contraction of atria. The QRS high peak, it is the systole, and the third peak, the T, is denoted as intervening. This is the structure of the electrocardiogram, which represent the cardiac cycle. Then let's move into the blood pressure. The blood pressure is the pressure on the walls of arteries when the heart is get contract. There are two ways of expressing the blood pressure. One is systolic pressure, the other one is diastolic pressure. When the heart get contract, the pressure exerted on the blood arteries is approximately 120 mercury millimeters. When get relaxed, the pressure exerted on the blood artery is approximately 80 mercury millimeters. This blood pressure is represent like this: systolic pressure divided by diastolic pressure. If this pressure get higher, you will suffer the high blood pressure. Then next one is dual circulation. The dual circulation means if the blood is carries throughout the body, they enters into the heart twice. If the blood or any molecules passes through our body completely, that molecule or blood enters into the heart twice. You can see in this figure, let's see a molecule that, let's see there is an oxygen molecule. Let's say oxygen molecule. The oxygen molecules that is carried from the lung first enter into the pulmonary veins and enter into the left atrium. Then after that, it enter into the left ventricle, and from left ventricle it enters into the aorta. After enter into the aorta, it get distributed and then again enter into the left atrium, and after that it again passes into the lungs again. Then now you can see this oxygen or glucose molecule the passes throughout the body at one time, and when it passes in throughout the body at one time, it enters into the heart twice. This figure also represents the double circulation. Then let's move into the second component of the circulatory system. It is blood vessels. As you can see in this figure, there are three types of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries. There are some differences between these three. Artery wall is thick and the vein wall is less thick than the artery wall, and the capillaries are having single cell layer thickness. It has least thickness. And inside the artery, there is a high blood pressure than the veins, and least blood pressure can be seen in the capillary, inside the capillary. From arteries and veins, there are no material exchanges occur, but from the capillary, the materials exchange can be occur to the blood tissue. And the arteries are carried blood away from the heart, and the veins carry blood towards the heart. And the capillaries join arteries and veins. Most of the time, artery doesn't have valves except semilunar valves, but the veins always have valves which is open towards the heart. But in capillaries, there are no valves present. The last component of this lesson is blood. As you have learned in first lesson of grade 11, the blood consists two parts: blood plasma and corpuscles. Blood plasma consists 55% and the corpuscles present 45%. Plasma consists water, waste product, nutrients, proteins, hormones, ions, but majority of the plasma consists water. It is 90%. The corpuscles are three types. They are leukocyte, that means white blood cells, erythrocyte, red blood cells, and the platelets. The function of the blood plasma is transferring different materials throughout the body, and the red blood cells helps to transfer oxygen throughout the body, and the platelets helps to blood clotting, and the leukocytes helps into the production of antibodies and for the destroying microorganisms by phagocytosis. And the leukocytes are two ways. One is these three are considered as the granulocytes, and the monocyte and lymphocytes are considered as non-granulocytes. Granulocytes are neutrophil, eosinophil, and basophils. Then last part of this lesson is diseases associated with the blood circulatory system. Under this, we are going to discuss three diseases: thrombosis, hypertension and hypotension, and the atherosclerosis. If I move into the thrombosis means a blood clot occur. If the blood clot occur or form inside the blood vessel is called the thrombosis. If the blood clot is form a artery of the heart, it may cause coronary thrombosis. It is also known as heart attack. If this blood clot form in the artery of the brain, it may cause paralysis. The hypertension and hypotension, when I consider the hypertension and hypotension, you know that there is a lumen inside the blood vessels. If the lumen of this blood vessels reduce due to deposition of cholesterol, majorly in arteries lumen, if the deposition of cholesterol is occurred, it may cause hypertension, because you know that if there is something deposit inside the artery wall, artery lumen, the lumen size is reduced. Because of that, you have to exert more pressure to pump blood through this artery. It is called hypertension. The hypotension is occurred because of getting old, or because of uh, because of loss of elasticity of the blood vessels. The atherosclerosis means there are when I consider the atherosclerosis, there are two types of lipoproteins in our body: high density lipoproteins and lower density lipoproteins. These lower density lipoproteins can deposit inside the blood vessels. When it deposits inside the blood vessels, they are called atheroma. These are called atheroma. When atheroma depositions is when having the atheroma depositions inside the lumen, you can see the lumen size of the lumen get reduced. Because of that, there can be a loss of supply of blood or oxygen for a certain organ. This is called atherosclerosis. If the blood supply for the heart is affected by due to atherosclerosis, it may cause angina situation. To prevent these diseases, you have to have better lifestyle. You have to prevent consuming of alcohol or smoking, and you have to reduction the consumption of food containing saturated fatty acid, and you have to reduce the consumption of food with, you have to increase the consumption of food with the more fiber, and you have to reduce salt consumption, and you have to reduce your body weight by proper food habits, and you have to keep your physical exercises properly, and as well as it is most important to keeping mental state stable. This is the last part of your lesson, and I think you have understand all the components of the blood